Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalised keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewellery, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You can even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewellery? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewellery Workshops. Vale Jewellery Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewellery. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Hey guys, how's it going? So welcome to Creative Space Podcast, and I just thought I'd give you guys a little treat. A few months ago, I did a podcast episode with the West End performer Hadley Fraser, who performed in Les Miserables in the 25th anniversary. He performed in the Phantom of the Opera 25th anniversary. He's a West End star, and I think he's just come off of a play called the Lehman Trilogy. One of the things that I've noticed about that particular podcast episode was when I released the clips of some of the features of the podcast on YouTube. Not one, not two, not three, but all 5 of the clips became top view audiences, whatever you want to call it. They were the top 5. They had the most views, and also I had the most listeners on all of my podcast platforms, and they were all to do with Hadley Fraser. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to give you guys a treat. I'm going to give my Creative Space fans a nice little treat just to say thank you very much for supporting me and, you know, just supporting the channel and following it. So without further ado, here is the full visual podcast of me and Hadley Fraser on Creative Space Podcast. Enjoy. So Hadley Fraser on my podcast today, and talking quite a lot though about Marvel theatre, and I truly wanted to know something before we get on to the biggest adventure. And you mentioned your father being from Cardiff, so tell us a bit more about your backstory then, where was you raised and who were your mum and dad?
Yeah, there was no sort of performing arts really in the immediate family. I think I had a sort of great uncle or something who was sort of theatrically minded, but my dad, like you say, was a Cardiff boy and was in the army for a bit. Well, my brother's in the army as well, actually. So that's kind of in the family. I don't quite know where that fits into everything. I think we both like dressing up. And my mum was a school teacher, so there really was no sort of, I don't really know where that came from, apart from the fact that I suppose you'll know, Reese, it doesn't take much for anyone from Wales to start singing, or at least start telling a story, or trying to communicate with one another. There feels to me a sort of a sense of a desire to connect that's in the DNA from Wales. And I think whatever I inherited from my dad, I think there was an awful lot of that in there. You know, the like the storytelling and all of that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of music as a kid, and I suppose that's where it came from. A lot of singing. I played guitar from very young. I played cello, and and then when I got to school, I did a wee bit more drama, and then on leaving school, I sort of ummed and ahed. I did English at university, English and drama. I sort of had designs on being a journalist, and then I got to university and sort of thought, actually, I'm going to get annoyed if I get 10 or 20 years down the line and haven't had a go at acting. So that's really how it all came about. Yeah, there was no sort of grand plan, and there was certainly nothing in the family. It was just sort of one thing that led to another. And I suppose because I'd always been singing, musical theatre sort of felt like a natural landing point to begin with. And so I suppose you know, a lot of the beginning of my career was musical theatre. Although I've been lucky to always do plays and television and film alongside it. And yeah, so I guess that's the backstory, really. Is that enough, Reese?
No, that's plenty. I was just going to ask you then, where did this voice come from? That I will say this, a beautiful tenor voice of yours, because I was doing some research last night and writing some notes, and my fiance was sat next to me. She was writing her script for university, and I played. There's a lot of videos of you on YouTube, especially with your singing, and she literally turned to me and went, "Who is that singing?" And I said, "Oh, this is Hadley Fraser. This is the person who I'm interviewing tomorrow." And she said to me, "My God, he's got a beautiful voice." And she's more of the singing side as well. Uh, and I was, and she was just absolutely amazed by it. So I've always wanted to know, where did that voice come from? Was it like as so many people would say, is it a gift, or would you say that it's practice makes perfect?
I'd say maybe a bit of both. I'm sort of slightly allergic to the idea of anything being a gift, I suppose. I mean, I think most people, whether they be musicians or writers or sportsmen or scientists or whatever people end up doing in life, they probably have a natural predilection for something and a natural interest in something, but by and large, they usually work for it, don't they?
Mm.
And I suppose from about the age of about 13 to 18, I was really fortunate that I grew up at a time when there was music sort of really invested in the education system. I don't know whether it's the same these days, but I didn't go, you know, I just went to a normal state school. But there was like music just really heavily in that system. And so I had voice lessons when my voice started to break and kept on going, really. And I had two fantastic teachers sort of throughout my teenage years, and learned classical technique, really, I suppose. And then I got to university and sort of found musical theatre, and I also played in lots of bands as well. Played and sang in lots of sort of function bands and stuff like that. That sort of, I don't know, broadened my vocal horizons a little bit. You know, suddenly I was having to sing much higher than I ever had done in my classical exams, which was all very sort of baritone and safely don't scare the horses. So I suppose there's probably a combination of Welsh gold in the pipes and just a lot of hard work too. And then that continued. I did a postgraduate 1 year course at the Royal Academy of Music, and that was very sort of heavily oriented towards the voice, as you might imagine, I guess. And I learned a great deal from a lot of the staff and the faculty there, just in terms of technique and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes it's luck that what comes out. And I guess these days, because I've been doing it for so long, sometimes I don't necessarily have to think about it. These days, what I have to think about is upkeep, because as you get older, you know, it becomes harder to. It's like a sportsman, I guess. It becomes harder to sort of stay in shape, doesn't it?
Mm.
And that's the same vocally, I think. You know, you have to look after your voice an awful lot more. And all those things that they used to say to me at college, which I was like, yeah, I don't have to worry about that, like not eating past 8 o'clock or not drinking alcohol or not drinking caffeine. Like if I'm doing a show, if I'm doing a musical, now I have to follow those rules. Whereas when I was 20 and I was first in the industry, I could sort of come out and belt out a show on stage every night and then go for a couple of pints afterwards and get up the next day and do it quite happily. So stuff changes, I suppose, and your voice changes. My voice is definitely dropping a wee bit, I suppose, as I get older. But I'm kind of fine with that. You know, you can't be a sort of juvenile tenor forever.
Because I mean, I wouldn't call myself a singer myself. I'm more down for the acting and the writing part. And it was funny because Emily, my fiance Emily, she like I said, she's the singer part and she loves performing and everything, and she's got a PA system at home. I never knew because I love doing musical theatre anyway. So if you love doing it, then there's no real shame in about worrying bits and pieces. And I sat there and I was like, "You've heard me sing, haven't you?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, I've heard you sing. I've seen a few things." I was like, "Would you call me a singer?" And because it didn't bother me, I was like, "Oh, do you come?" Because my worries are the acting and the writing. Like I said, I never really bothered. And she was like, "I think you're more of a character singer." I was like, "What does that mean?" I've heard of character acting. What's character singing?
Yeah, that's damning with faint praise. That is.
What's that?
That's damning with faint praise. Did you get up and sing something to prove yourself? I hope so.
Well, I said I turned around and I said to her, "Look, I love singing. You know, oh, well, not over the top. I mean, when I was in school, my my music teacher, my older, who was head of sixth form as well, he knew I had something because I'll never forget this. It was 2011, I think, 2011, 2012. No, 2012 it was. And my drama teacher was going to put on a school production of Little Shop of Horrors. And I'll never, like I said, I keep saying it, I'll never forget it. He's watching on the projector of the film. Steve Martin comes on as the dentist on the motorbike. And it was in a spontaneous moment. I was to walk in through the drama room, and he literally just went, looked up, looked to me, and went, "Reese, you're going to audition for that character." And I was like, "Am I? Am I really? Oh, all right then." But I was very reluctant. They were showing me the songs, they were showing me this, and but I couldn't do the auditions anyway because my dad's father, my grandfather passed away, and the funeral was on the day of the audition. So I was like, "Ah, man," and it didn't bother me. But then I came back a few days later, cast list, Reestings or in the dentist. I got the part without even audition. I was thinking, what are they doing? What's going on? And so I did this. Yeah, so I did the song. Well, the two songs that he sang, but then Mr. Borton, the music teacher, said, "Are you doing anything outside of school, like amateur dramatics or anything?" And I went, "Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm at the moment doing Guys and Dolls, but I'm in the chorus." And he went, "Do you know any of the songs by heart?" And I said, "Oh, sit down, you're rocking a boat. I know it." And he went, "Come with me." So we went into a music room, and he went, "Reese, just sing for me." And I started singing, and then he was there going, "Jesus Christ, Reese, where did that come from?" And it was because I went so high in octave. So I've always thought I was more baritone tenor. And then going on to my fiance, so I started singing, what did I sing? "This Is the Moment" from Jekyll and Hyde. Because then when I went to sixth form, and I went to the school down the road, the music teacher there, Matthew Morris, he saw something and he was like, "Oh, Reese, come here. Do you know the song "This Is the Moment"? Blah blah blah." And I started singing it, and he was like, "Jesus Christ!" So I proved her then, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you can hold a tune." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks." So that's where it all came about. But I wouldn't call myself a singer in some ways.
Well, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know where you might need it. That's what I always think.
Yeah. The one thing I always wanted to ask you as well, and it's on the second question, is how do you know Stephen Mia? I mean, because on the because on the yeah, because on the email, it was just I love the little line that you said about Stephen Mia. It's like, "Well, you've had Stephen Mia on the show and you sold me already, no problem." So how do you know him?
Stephen and I have worked together a couple of times. we did a musical down in Chichester called The Pajama Game, near enough a decade ago, which was sort of lovely old 60s musical. It's very sweet, sort of jazz score. And Stephen was the choreographer on that. And it ended up transferring into London, actually came into the West End. I couldn't come with it. I was doing Coriolanus at the Donmar at the time, so I couldn't do it. But yeah, I'd worked with Stephen then, and then we did a show called City of Angels together at the Donmar Warehouse a few years later, which again is another jazz musical, which finally got its transfer into the West End just pre-pandemic. In fact, we'd done maybe about 2 weeks of previews when the pandemic hit, and we had to close down. So there was sort of 6-month contract that just went begging there, and it's a real shame, especially for Stephen, because his work on that show was terrific. I think he's one of our finest. You know, it goes without saying, he's one of our finest choreographers and finest musical stagers that we have in the country. So experienced, so knowledgeable, but also such a kind and gentle and a man just full of humility, especially someone brimming with such talent. I'd drop everything to go and work with Stephen. I think the world of him.
When I had him on the podcast, it took a while, and I mean it took months, because we agreed on a date, and then he was busy, didn't happen then, which was fine. That was understandable. We left it for a bit, and then I went off and did other things and tried to see who I could bring on, and then it got to a point then a couple of months ago that we finally got to it, and it was worth the wait, because the stories he told, and just having the 40 to an hour long conversation with him was just enough for me. And he was lovely, and he was engaging. He was intrigued at what I did, and I was just absolutely in awe because of what he done, especially with Mary Poppins as well. I mean,
he's so experienced, you know. There's not much that Stephen hasn't done.
Yeah.
You know, on Broadway, around the world. He's one of those sorts of treasures that the industry, I suppose, knows about, but probably doesn't have too much profile beyond that, you know. But I think, I don't think there's many better than Stephen, and there's not many better men than Stephen either. Really, you know, he's a gorgeous man.
Yeah. So when you finished university, you went on to the West End and played Marius in Les Miserables. Now, how did that come about? Because that was your first ever, I'm guessing, first ever performance or role on the West End stage.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like I said, I'd finished university and then did my postgrad degree, my postgrad year, I suppose, diploma it was, at the Royal Academy of Music. And Les Mis came about because at the time when I was at the Royal Academy, I've told this story before, but there was a very famous production of My Fair Lady happening at the time that Trevor Nunn had directed with Jonathan Pryce and Martine McCutcheon. I don't know if you remember Martine McCutcheon. She was in EastEnders for years. I mean, this is probably, how old were you in about 2002, Reese? Were you even born?
2000, I was 5 in 2000. I would have been 6.
Yeah. So that's when I was entering the industry, which is quite a sobering thought. But there was this production of My Fair Lady, and they were recasting for the second cast, and I think they were having trouble finding Freddie Eynsford Hill. I don't know if you know the show, but he's the sort of young, juvenile, sort of chinless wonder. And they came into the Royal Academy, and a couple of people from the course, myself and a couple of other people, were auditioned for My Fair Lady for because Cameron McIntosh was producing that, and I didn't get it. But he said to me at the time, he said, "Look, when Les Mis, when we have auditions again for the recast of Les Mis, we'll get you in." He was true to his word, and I finished college about maybe 4 or 5 weeks early to go and start rehearsals for Les Mis. So it was sort of right place, right time, I suppose. But I also owe a great deal of gratitude and a debt of gratitude, I suppose, to Cameron for sort of plucking me out of college and going, right, on you go. And this was, I suppose, I think back on it now, and I think I'm incredibly lucky, A, to have had that sort of launch pad into the industry, but also B, to launch straight into such a sort of secure show. I suppose there was no thought of Les Mis closing, or you know, there was no idea of, as it, you know, it's still going now to this day. The realities of the theatre world, if you open a new show, there's no guarantee it's going to be running the week after. You know, I've done plays and shows where we've run for a week and then closed because it's been no good or reviewed really poorly. But going into a show and having a year to sort of learn the ropes, learn how to be on stage, learn how to conduct yourself off stage, for right or for wrong, I suppose. That was a really big and very fortunate turn of events for me, I suppose. Are you a fan of the show, Reese? Do you know it well?
Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Les Miserables growing up has always been, I've always tried to avoid Les Mis because it was so popular. When you try it, you don't want to be the person to be jumping on the bandwagon, but I caught the bug. I caught the Les Mis bug when I was in sixth form, and as I was in sixth form, the film was released, and you were in it.
Yeah, for about 5 seconds. Yeah.
Hey, you made an impact though, because I was like, I recognize your face, and then I looked you up, and then the clip turned up, and I was like, oh my god, yeah, that's the Catherine. You had a really good voice, because I went with a. So actually, I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you later down the line about the film, but I might as well now. So, how did that come about, and what was it like to be performing with the likes of Eddie Redmayne?
Yeah, I'd been in this. So my first job was Marius in the West End, and then about a decade later, I'd been to America and lived there for a little bit, and I came back and I was sort of twiddling my thumbs and not really getting much work. And I got a call sort of out of the blue from Cameron's office. Again, I owe a great deal of gratitude to them, but they asked me sort of really out of the blue to come and play Grantaire, who's the drunk student in the 25th anniversary concert. I was very happy to be part of that. And then off the back of that, Cameron sort of came up to me. I remember we were rehearsing the 25th anniversary, and Cameron came up to me and said, "You've grown up a bit, and your voice has grown up a bit as well. Would you like to come and play Javert?" And I thought, oh, sure about that. I mean, I'm desperately excited, but I'm not sure I'm a natural Javert. So I came in and sung for him and for the team, and they obviously thought it was a good fit. And so at the sort of in the wake of the 25th anniversary, Alfie Boe and Matt Lucas and myself all sort of kept going in the show in town with some other fantastic people as well. I don't mean to disclude anyone else, but you know, those would be the people that you'd know from the 25th anniversary. And it was during that run, while I was playing Javert, it was during that year that the film sort of took off, and it was a slight, I don't think I'd be talking out of turn to say there was a slightly strange atmosphere backstage at the theatre, because obviously we all felt like we were telling this story night in, night out. And there were a lot of people, I suppose, on that stage, quite rightly sort of thinking, oh, well, probably, you know, would be no stretch of the imagination to think we might be asked to be involved in the film. I think pretty much everybody got the chance to audition. But because it was Tom Hooper directing and working title producing and all of this kind of stuff, it sort of, there was a lot of people making a lot of decisions. So it wasn't really just Cameron's decisions who ended up in the film. But it was a very strange feeling doing the show at night as Javert, and then going in the next day to Pinewood and filming on the set, which felt like you really were on the streets of Paris. It was, the oddest thing actually was being on this incredible film set that felt about as real life as it possibly could do, and then getting bussed into the theatre that evening and sort of stepping out onto the stage and just thinking, oh, this is just a bit shit, really. No, this doesn't really feel like it should do. We're used to this epic film set now. But you know, I suppose I must have been. I didn't really shoot for all that long. I was only there maybe for 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, you know, Eddie was very admirable to watch. I really admire him as an actor, and he was always deep in discussion with Tom Hooper. I think Tom lent on him a lot, and his intellect. I really enjoyed watching Hugh Jackman work. For some reason, I got left on set while they filmed Bring Him Home in the little cafe there. I don't quite know how. I don't think I was really allowed to be there, and I didn't linger on purpose. But I was on set when they filmed that, and that was really special to witness. And yeah, I mean those were the sorts of those are the main guys when I was there, as well as, you know, all of the students, a lot of whom I knew from the stage show, and loads of supporting artists for all the sort of fight scenes and stuff like that, and you know, cannons going off left, right, and centre. There was one day where we did the sort of final assault on the students, and I think we only did 2 takes that day because we did the entire sequence. So all the stunt performers, all the cannons going off, and everybody singing at the same time. It was a joy to be a part of, I have to say. And it's one of the few things. I'm not very good at watching myself back on screen, if I'm honest. You know, I've done TV and film and I've never seen it, but I went to the cast and crew screening of that, and I thought they did a brilliant job. It must be so hard putting such a beloved show like that on screen and also making it something slightly different. I don't know, what did you think of the film? Because some people absolutely love it, some people I think find it hard because they have such an attachment to the stage show. What did you think?
I've never. Here's the thing: I've never ever seen it live on stage, and that is for someone who's, I'd say, a big theatre person like myself. I should really get my ass in gear and go and watch it. But when I went to watch the film, I cried 4 times.
Did you?
Yeah, I cried 4 times. The 2 of them that I know was obviously I Dreamed a Dream because Anne Hathaway I thought she was brilliant. No, I remember the 3. The kid, the one who played Gavroche, when he got killed and Russell Crowe puts the medal on the child, I thought, oh my God. And the 3rd time was when Hugh Jackman, he's slowly passing away, and Anne Hathaway comes and says, look, I can't remember the actual lines, but then he goes, and I went. So, but it's weird because in relation to Les Miserables, I actually know a guy who played Gavroche in the film with Liam Neeson and Jeffrey Rush.
Okay.
Yeah, his name's Shane Rose Goodser, and he played Gavroche in the film. And when he went to watch it, he said, yeah, it was all right, it's okay, you know, because obviously he did the film, but it was just
we're our own worst critics as well, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
The one thing I wanted to ask you about, because when you said you played Javert, I've always wanted to know, and Stars is one of my favorite songs, and I'd love to, if I put more time and effort in, I'd love to sing that song. But what is it about that song that makes an impact, if you know what I mean? What's so it probably sounds like an ignorant question. What's so special about the song Stars? Why is it that people would love to sing it, even though you get some songs that a lot of people would, it's always like a bouncy song, or it's an impact song. It's like it got a lot of oomph to it. But Stars, it's a very subtle song. It's a very, even though it's sung by the antagonist, I've always put an antagonist because I never really saw Javert as an antagonist for some reason. Never really saw it. But My
Yeah,
question is,
I suppose in the sort of sense of classical literature, he's the antagonist, isn't he?
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'll ask the same question of you in a moment. It's a beautifully written song, sort of structurally, just musically, I think. And you'd have to say that of most of the score, to be honest. You know, Claude Michel Schoenberg, I think, is that his finest on that score. There's a sort of sense of it being a bit of a prayer. You know, prayer is so prevalent in that show. I think you know, people's connection with God or with faith. You know, obviously the Bring Him Home in the show, technically speaking, is called the prayer rather than Bring Him Home. So the characters are very often, I think, making an appeal to God. And I suppose Javert in that moment is at his most human, I suppose. So in the context of the show, he can be an unlovable character, although I suppose in terms of the pure storytelling, he can be an unlovable character. Though audiences, I think, sort of like love to love the baddie, don't they? So he gets a lot of love, you know, from the audience at the end. But he's at his most human there because I suppose he's on his own and he's able to sort of say, look, this is why I operate the way I operate. I've never been a huge fan of it, actually.
no,
I think, other than the fact that it's a beautiful song, you could probably cut it from the show, and Javert might not be as attractive a character to play because that's a lovely song, but he would be a more dislikable antagonist, I suppose. So I suppose my answer is sort of contained in your question in a way. It's hard to think of him as the antagonist because that song humanizes him. I don't know. That just made sense when it came out of my mouth, but I'm not sure I believe it.
Yeah, I've always figured it's well, I say it's a human song. It's just you don't blame the guy for trying to do his. It's like I asked my fiance the other day, what makes stars? No, it wasn't my fiance. It was my friend Lewis earlier on today. I asked him because we're doing a play together in a couple of weeks, and I said, what makes stars so good or such a strong song? And you know, try to defines the character. And he turned around and said to me, because it's what he sort of represents everyone who has a is conflicted with life, whether it's right or wrong, you know. And I was like, that is a good answer. I can't fault that.
I mean, drama is conflict, isn't it? Theatre
Yeah.
is conflict, and he is a conflicted character, I suppose. He has this drive to do the right thing. He's very sort of, he counts on himself as having a real sort of moral rectitude. But then at the end, you know, lets Valjean go and then kills himself as a consequence of the enormity of his action. You know, he sort of crossed his own moral Rubicon and then really can't live with himself. It's a sort of literary character that I suppose we'd find it quite hard to probably find that person in real life these days. But I suppose that's the joy of I mean, I remember reading the novel both times when I did the show and looking for clues within the novel, and that's the joy of the sort of the beauty of Hugo's writing. I think you find it in Dickens as well. You know, those conflicted characters that aren't necessarily, I think, true to contemporary life, but ones that we can't help but be drawn to in sort of historical fiction.
You mentioned as well about Cameron Mackintosh, and I've watched his the documentary that the BBC did, and you know the life story and the career so far of Cameron Mackintosh. I mean, a powerhouse figure, the man who's brought many musicals to life because of either his own backing or just his hard work. And you mentioned him quite a little bit, you know, when he approached you and to talk about Javert, but I wanted to know a little bit more of him as a person, but also as someone who is also the producer and theoretically the boss
Mm.
in some ways.
Yeah. Well, I suppose people have spoken a bit about Cameron McIntosh much more than I have, but I suppose he represents a desire, I think, to foreground theatre in this country in a way that not many other people can manage or have the sort of imagination to manage. You know, his imagination in getting some of these things off the ground, and then his will and his expertise in terms of getting them up, sort of unparalleled, really. That, you know, he has contemporaries in a producing department. You know, like I suppose someone like Angela Weber, I suppose, or Nika Burns, or you know, Howard Panther, those kind of guys. But yeah, there is a sort of drive with Cameron that I think is lacking in most mortals, and his attention to detail is quite something as well. You know, he is across all of his shows. He knows who is in them. He's not afraid to give notes to people if he feels like they're not doing what he wants them to do. And I suppose the success of his shows would lead you to believe that those notes are worth taking. He's certainly given me notes in the past, and I've listened to him, because there's not many people probably who've seen many more shows or spent more nights at the theatre, or who have made a success of being in the world of theatre than he has. You know, I think we'll struggle to because of the lie of the land, I suppose. You know, I guess in the 80s, theatre was ripe for someone like Cameron or for someone like Andrew to sort of become a figure like they have become. I think it will be hard for people to sort of become that these days for various reasons. But yeah, I have a great deal of admiration and respect for him, and he's asked me to come and do a couple of things in the last couple of years. I won't say what, but it hasn't worked out for one reason or another, and I feel a sense of sorrow with that, actually, because I would love to work with him again, but you know, sometimes you can't. These things don't match up. These things don't align. But hopefully one day something will align.
Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalised keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewellery, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware, including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248.
Jumping forward just a moment before I go back on to, because you got to think for appearing in 25th anniversary shows and everything, especially Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera, which I'll get down to in a moment. But I want to quickly ask about this play by Danny Robbins, which is 2:22 or 22 minutes past 2. This Danny Robbins play, it's getting so huge, and ever since I first saw it advertised, I'm thinking, I thought it was just a typical oh, it's a ghost play like The Woman in Black and like Ghost Stories, oh, it's going to be in the theater, but then it's gotten so big over time, and I really want to know from you, because you performed in it, what is it about 2:22 that is so captivating?
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about it now. It really has taken hold, hasn't it? I think they've just opened the fourth cast, I think. What do I think? Why is it so captivating? I think it's down to many things, really. Amongst those things are Danny himself as a writer, who sort of started off in the comedy world, and so has a lovely sort of wry sense of comedy, working through all of the things that he does. In latter years, he's become really interested in the idea of the supernatural, and has done a couple of brilliant podcasts, which I thoroughly recommend, as well as your own, of course, Reese. But he's done one called The Battersea Poltergeist, which sort of started life as a Radio 4 series, which is about a real haunting in Battersea in the 60s. And it's well worth, some of it's dramatized and some of it's sort of documentary. And he's recently done another podcast series called Uncanny, which is where he gets members of the public to sort of send in their experiences with the supernatural. And he gets a sort of, he'll get two people, one skeptic and one believer, to sort of talk it over. They're really worth listening to. So Danny comes to it as a writer with this sort of beautiful sense of comedy and contemporary drama, and also this sort of, I think he would describe himself as a sort of nerd of the supernatural. Like, the desire for him to see a ghost is really quite high on his list. And he's come up with this play that I think an awful lot of people can relate to. Allied to that is the work of Matthew Dunster, who was the director, which makes it a very tight evening at the theatre, a very sort of visceral experience. It's not gory, it's not sort of shock horror in that way that some of those 90s sort of slasher films were all about. It's much more psychological than that, and I think that's where Matthew's genius comes in terms of just taking the audience to a point where they feel comfortable, and then bang, suddenly there's a scare or something like that. And I suppose, I think there's something in the supernatural that will always keep people coming back. And there's probably maybe one play in a generation that really gets it for whatever reason, like you said, Woman in Black, or Inspector Calls. I think 2:22, for those reasons, and probably some slightly intangible ones as well, is becoming a bit of a juggernaut, really. I think it's going to have a life beyond the UK very soon. And I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know anything about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being adapted into a film or a television, one-off or something like that. It's because it's also just in one setting. It takes place in the front room of a house. It's really, really sort of claustrophobic. And there's a thrill, isn't there? I mean, I don't know how you feel, Reese, but there's a thrill about getting scared.
Oh yeah.
And certainly when we started rehearsing it, we hadn't got the foggiest whether it was really going to work or not, or whether people. I think we felt it was a really good play, but the extent to which people were going to be scared about it and the twist at the end was going to shock them was really hard to know how much that was actually going to land. And I remember the first night we did it, the four of us who were the sort of main guys, myself, Lily Allen, Jake Woods, and Julia Chan, were sort of stood backstage. And there was a sort of look of like, before we went on stage, we all just kind of went, well, let's see what happens, like these ones. I mean, Lily had been dry retching in her dressing room before then, and Jake was a bit shaky. We were all a bit nervous because it was also the first show that a lot of us had done coming out of lockdown. So getting loads of people back in the theatre again felt like a success story in itself, let alone the play itself being good. So we felt like we were up against two things: firstly, a new play, and also enticing people back into the theatre, which at the time, as you know, I think people were really trepidatious about coming back into the theatre because, you know, this was a virus that spread by people being next to each other in enclosed spaces. So we sort of were up against it. But I'm really so pleased and proud of that show. And I hope, have you seen it, Reese? Have you had the chance? If not, I hope you will at some point.
No, I hope I will, because it's one of those plays where I really need to get on and watching, because I was really disappointed that I never got to see. It's not a horror play, but it's based on the makings of a brilliant horror film called The Shark Is Broken.
Oh yeah.
And that's the one I regrettably did not get to see at the Edinburgh Fringe or even in the West End. And I love Jaws. It's one of my favorite films. I don't care if the shark looks fake or not. It's the tension. It's the
psychological tension. Isn't it?
Yeah, the building up tension is like, oh my God, I love it. And it's the performance. And to miss that play with Ian Shaw playing his father, it's one of those things I would love. And 222 is going to be up there. And I had a friend, Chelsea, she went to go and watch it, and she was like, Reese, if you love your horror, you got to go and watch it. And it's like, I will never forget. I remember watching The Woman in Black in London, went on a school trip. I was at GCSEs, I think, going in, year 11 GCSE. So we went on a trip to London. We watched the 39 Steps first. Then we had a break in London. Oh yeah. And then The Woman in Black came about, and some of us were like, yeah, we'll be all right. And literally by the end of it, some of us came out pale as, I mean, no pun intended, white as a ghost, because we were that terrified. Because the way they did it was, obviously they turned it up. Now, bear in mind, I was up in the second tier and I was sat against the wall. But even then, I'm there going like that because it had that profound effect. And it was absolutely fantastic seeing it in London. But then when I saw it in the new theatre in Cardiff, I was so let down, so let down, because what had happened was the new theatre left their safety lights on the walls, so it was a little bit bright in the room. So I'm not slagging out the performers or anything like that. They did a fantastic job, because I still left feeling not feeling scared, but feeling very proud that they'd done that. But it was the fact that I saw the woman in black literally walk past, and I'm thinking, well,
that's playing it.
What's the point? What's the point in me looking to be scared? I want to be scared, and in the end, I think my drama teacher demanded the money back.
That's fair enough. I mean, you go back to Cameron, I suppose, and that's the sort of detail that I think if he found out about, he'd hit the roof, you know, because the theatre's a really important experience to get everything right, you know. It just takes something like that, doesn't it, to sort of take you out of it, and then your experience of it is completely altered. You know, it's why we go, rather than just sitting in our front rooms, we go to be transported and to have that, you know, disbelief suspended, and to sort of sit there and go, I am somewhere else right now. I don't want to be reminded that there's a fire exit.
Yeah, it was funny because the fire exit was so far back, but it was just literally some of the safety lights just still on. Not even the fire exit. It was just the safety lights for them is still the light, nearly the house lights. And I was like, really?
Not great.
Oh, for God's sake. Quickly going back then, you're familiar with the 25th anniversaries of Phantom of the Opera and Les Miserables.
Yeah.
We already mentioned Les Miserables. Talking about Phantom of the Opera, and as always, how did that come about? Did you get to meet Andrew Lloyd Webber, and was the experience of doing the 25th anniversary up there as in one of the top fives, or just up there as one of your finest?
I don't know. It's a funny dichotomy, this, because I'd never done the show. I'd never done a run of the show in town, so I didn't know it all that well. I'd only ever seen it before in Spanish, in Spain. A friend of mine was in Madrid, and I've got to say, Reese, watching Phantom of the Opera in Spanish, I don't speak Spanish. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I did not have a foggiest. So I didn't really have a connection with the show. And it was actually at the same time, I think it was the same year as we were doing the Les Mis film. I think it was at the end. Or was it the year before? No, it was the year before. That's right. But I just started off as Javert. I think it's. I think that's right. And I'm getting my dates mixed up. Anyway, I was doing Les Mis at the time. I was doing Javert, and I think I can't remember whether Ramin was doing Valjean at the time, but Cameron came in one day and said, "Look, we're doing the Phantom 25th with Ramin as the Phantom." Cameron sort of said, "I always feel like the show works best when Raoul is a sort of genuine opposition to the Phantom, when it feels like they can take one another on, as opposed to the Phantom sort of having primacy the whole time." So he said, "Look, I know you guys are, you've worked together a lot, and he's like, I think it would work really, really well if you came and did Raoul." I felt slightly trepidatious about it because I didn't have a history with the show, and I knew that there was an awful lot of decent actors who had done the role, who probably would have been sat on the sidelines thinking, "Hang on a minute, why is he doing it? He's never done the show before." So I did sort of go into it with feeling slightly with a bit of imposter syndrome, but we rehearsed it maybe for about 2 or 3 weeks, and if I'm totally honest with you, the very first performance, I think we did 3 performances. The first performance I can't really remember much of because it was such a blur, and I was so nervous at the Albert Hall, sort of doing this brand new show. I'd been doing Javert in the evenings and rehearsing Phantom during the day up until about 2 days before we did the performances. So I was running on empty, really. But the reaction at the end was something quite remarkable. And the reaction at the end of the third performance, which was the one I think that got filmed for DVD and the one that got transmitted to cinemas around the world, the response at the end was something that I'll always remember. And Andrew was around. I didn't have a great deal to do with him because he didn't really involve himself too much in the rehearsals. We had a big team that were looking after all of that. Gillian Lynn, the late brilliant choreographer Gillian Lynn, who choreographed the original production, was there, and I remember enjoying working with Gillian a great deal, and obviously working with Ramin and Sierra was great fun. That show and that 25th anniversary has sort of taken on a bit of a life of its own in a way. Especially going somewhere like the Far East, to Japan or China, that production still is huge over there, and I get lots of love from that. So I have a lot to thank it for. But it's not something that because I only did it for about 3 weeks and 3 performances, it's not something that I have a huge attachment to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a funny contradistinction, really, but I guess that's life. Sometimes you become known for things that, or you are. There is an attachment that you have to something which other people don't share. It's quite strange.
You were in Doctor Who at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, I was shot in Cardiff, in fact.
Yeah. Army of Ghosts. So it was literally one of Billy Piper's last episodes.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was her penultimate episode.
Yeah.
Again, one I've never watched because I can't bear watching myself. But I wish in a way I knew what I knew now and had go back and reshoot that. I didn't have a clue about acting for screen at that time. That was my first television job, and I think I sort of adopted a slightly theatrical approach to acting on screen, which I think if I had my time again, I'd go back and readjust. But you know, it's all a part of a learning curve, isn't it? Are you a Doctor Who fan, Reese?
Oh yes,
Yeah, rightio.
big one. If I had, I mean, one of the big dreams is to write for Doctor Who. Even if it was just for one episode, I could say I wrote for Doctor Who.
Right. Yeah. What is it about the show? Because I have to say, I'm a sci-fi fan, but Doctor Who has never been one that I've sort of cleaved to. What is it about the show that you love?
Well, funny enough, I think it's everything that it's basically like a full English. You got your. I've always said it's like a full English meal. You got your beans, you got your sausages, you got your bacon, you basically got every single piece that's for everyone, if you know what I mean. And I and I think it's because that there's always been, and I've always said this, and I've always been heavily critical on the Chris Chibnall era. I've always been critical on Chris Chibnall's writing. But I've always said the formula to Doctor Who has been working for nearly 60, well, not even, I'm not even going to include Chris Chibnall's run, but over 50 years where there is a monster or there is a situation, as I say. The Doctor turns up at that place, where it's back in time, in the future, in another planet or whatever, arrives at that situation. He or she deals with the situation, and they fight. There's a bit of a problem, and then the Doctor wins and goes off to fight another day. And I thought, well, if that's always been the formula, then that's always worked. And that's actually a good question on your part, because I think it's just for everyone to enjoy, and I think that the issue is, like, me and my band always watch Doctor Who, and he's he's tolerable and he's open-minded. Oh, female Doctor and everything. I've got no issues with Jodie Whittaker. I just think she was, I think she was let down by the writing, and I've always said I would have done 10 times more better for Jodie Whittaker, and I know what kind of Doctor she would have been to get going and be memorable. I just think it was a bit sad, but for Doctor Who as a whole, you could say it's the monsters, you could even say the Daleks, you could say the Master, you could say the story itself or the formula itself or anything. It could be for anyone who's just intrigued. For me, it's just everything. I just love the sci-fi. I love how the Doctor changes character, changes actors, different periods. It's just everything about it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's never been one that I've gone for, but I can see that sort of continual revolution or that continual evolution in the show could just be sort of semi-addictive, really. Maybe I should try it. There's so much to see, Reese. I can't start something else. That would be foolish.
I take it though, it's like seeing that it's through evolution, it goes through time and everything. But another one as well, you mentioned I can't always pronounce it. Coriolanus. Coriolanus is
Coriolanus, yeah.
Coriolanus. Shakespeare plays. I mean, I've done 2 in my time, but they were cut down Shakespeare school productions. And even then, I mean, I managed to do it and I managed to learn the lines. But every time I see, monologues or soliloquies of the play, and I just think to myself, how does the likes of Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Tom Hiddleston that we mentioned, David Tennant, and so many, Judi Dench, so many fine actors and actresses who just off the top of their head just go, boom, is a Shakespearean monologue. I just think, how does one do that? And what was your experience like on that play as well, along with Tom Hiddleston?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's part of the job, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Getting chops around a monologue or a soliloquy or whatever. Yeah, Coriolanus was a real ride. It was great to work with Tom. He's sort of force of nature, really, and was terrific in that role. It was sort of written for him, albeit 400 years earlier. And I don't know if you've ever seen anything at the Donmar Warehouse. I've worked there quite a few times, but it's a it's a very intimate space, and to do a big sort of epic play in such an intimate space changed the nature of it. But yeah, we were sort of we were a happy bunch on that play, because it's not one that's all that well known or all that well loved. And I would say our director, Josie Rourke, sort of did a brilliant job at streamlining it and making it understandable for people, and really sort of turning it into something that was very appealing to people. It helped that Tom and I were sort of, we had a big fight in Act 1 that was quite compelling, and then there were some terrific actors in it, people like Mark Gatiss, speaking of Doctor Who, Mark Gatiss and Deborah Findlay, and the great Birgitte Hjort Sørensen from Denmark, and Peter Jersey, and some Alfie Enoch, some quite incredible cast actually when you think about it. So we're very fortunate with that. Yeah, I don't know. I think most actors probably at some point in their lives desire a bit of Shakespeare in around their way. So that was my first one, and I'm glad I did it. And then I was lucky enough to do Winter's Tale with Kenneth Branagh and Judi Dench and a few other more wonderful people a couple of years later. So I had a nice little kind of spurt of Shakespeare for a while. I'd love to do another one. One day. It's a privilege, I think.
Yeah. What was it like to do All Is True with Kenneth Branagh, Ian McKellen, and Judi Dench? Because speaking of Shakespeare, because you played the part of John Hall, which was the son-in-law to Shakespeare. So I will be honest, I've only seen snippets of the film.
I've never seen it, so you've seen more than I have.
But during the production side, what was it like to work with Kenneth Branagh?
Yeah. I mean, over and above the fact that he's wonderful and a brilliant leader and an incredible sort of human, and finds the time to do all sorts of things, it feels sort of like he's got more time in the day. I don't quite know how, that the amount of stuff that he gets done. The strangest thing about shooting that film was the fact that Ken was obviously playing Shakespeare and directing it. So more often than not, he would be behind the camera in his prosthetics and in his costume dressed as Shakespeare. So it was like being directed by William Shakespeare. And that man has a sort of straight shot somehow to Shakespeare. It feels like Ken's a sort of natural inheritor of that line of English literature. So it didn't feel. It felt at times a bit trippy, sort of watching Ken behind the camera, and then sort of seeing him come out from the camera, acting with him as Shakespeare, and then him going back behind the camera still as Shakespeare. That was quite strange. But it was a beautiful story, actually, and I've worked with Judi a couple of times now, and it's just sort of, anyone in their right mind who works with her, I think, just sort of stands and tries to learn. And that's what I did on that one.
Last question for you then, Hadley, and I've always asked this question to many, many people on the podcast. How do you look back on your career so far?
I don't think I've ever been asked that, Reese. How do I look back on my career? I suppose I would say if someone had offered me the career that I've had so far when I was 20 or 21, just about to start in the industry, I would have taken it. I would have snapped their hands off. So, yeah, I've pride in a lot of it. Unfinished business elsewhere. But I think I would have been proud of what I'd done if someone had said, this is what you're going to do by 42, if I was 21. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel? I always feel like there's more to do, more people to work with, more to learn, more to create.
Yeah, I've always said, I mean, I'm 26 and I'm more determined than ever to reach that next step. Whereas to get one of my plays on the West End stage, and then or maybe Broadway is always the dream. But I always say, never give up, never give in, always enjoy the moments. There's no such thing as not enough time. There's always time. You just got to learn to get off your ass and do it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's the thing that I'm learning more as I get older, I suppose, is that doors aren't necessarily open for you. Sometimes you have to open them yourself, and that does mean getting up for your ass and doing stuff and getting shit done. And yeah, I learned that a bit late, I think, but I totally agree with that. You know, do it yourself.
Well, that's the thing, because in a couple of weeks' time, me and my friend Lewis will be performing a play of mine called A Writer's Guide to Madness of Success and Failure. And it's literally about two rookie playwrights who feel that they've got a play on their hands. They're going to go to the West End stage, but then it turns out that the play is not going to happen. The production's being halted, the financial backers have pulled out, and then they decide in a drunken stupor that they're going to go rob one of the
Playwrights as bank robbers, amazing.
Yeah, and but the thing is, it's set in the one room. That's all it is. It's set in an office, and we're playing drunk. And my friend, he's set in his character's office, and he's pulling out the gun and goes, "We're gonna do this," and my character's like, "What do you mean we're gonna do this? What?" And it's more like a, "Let's do it. We'll do it. No, I can't do it. Let's do it. No, we can't do it." Then I go, "Oh yeah, let's do it. Oh no, we don't want to do it now." But it's conflict. So
yeah, that sense of let's do it. We've got to draw this to a close, but I worked with Mel Brooks on Young Frankenstein, and that's something that he, I think, understands about human nature more than anybody else. That idea that more often than not, as humans, we go, "Yeah, let's do it," and then you completely, like, you either lose your nerve or you try it and it goes wrong. But that's part of the beauty of life, isn't it?
yeah.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Well then, guys, that was it. That was me and Hadley Fraser on Creative Space Podcast. That was a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing that podcast episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too, watching it or listening to it, wherever you are. I hope that's brought some entertainment and comfort for you, and there will be more in the future. So please like the video, share it, and also subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. And let's see if we can get up to 1,000 subscribers by maybe the end of the year. Maybe, dare I say it? But again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Creative Space Podcast. I've been your host, Julie Reesteens, and I'll see you soon. Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalised keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewellery, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware, including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248.